Now to our top story, and Erin Patterson has spent her first night in prison as a convicted mass murderer after a jury found her guilty of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder over a lethal lunch in 2023 where she served beef Wellington containing death cap mushrooms.
For more, let's bring in our experts, former Victorian homicide detective Charlie Bazzina and criminal defence lawyer Ruth Parker. Morning to both of you. We'll start with you, Charlie. What was your reaction to the verdict? A middle-aged mum living in country Victoria, now a mass murderer.
Good morning, guys. I was a bit surprised. I thought it was such a complex case in the 8-week trial that it went, eight and a bit. I think I was expecting possibly a hung jury given the complexities of it, but I think the jury have really applied themselves and come back with a true verdict, and I think it's a testament to the work that the Homicide Squad people have done.
Ruth, this was extremely interesting for the world, this case alone, but for the legal world, no doubt, really interesting to see some of the twists and turns, particularly when her legal team put her on the stand, Erin Patterson, to give her own evidence. Were you surprised by that?
Not really, Shervo, because unfortunately they were put in a position where she had clearly lied to police during her record of interview, and the only way that they were going to get her version across, or the version that the defence were promoting, was to call her and to put these things to her. But it must have been a terribly stressful situation. Calling your own client is always deeply uncomfortable. She was in the witness box for a number of days, but unfortunately I think that was the only choice that they had.
So, Ruth, do you think that ruined her case? There's some conflicting reports that she was combative and that she was convincing on the stand.
Look, it's hard to know because ultimately they need to be satisfied of the prosecution case beyond a reasonable doubt. But what the defence were confronted with was a number of lies in her record of interview, including the fact that she didn't own a food dehydrator, the dehydrator that was then recovered from the tip after they found a manual for a food dehydrator in her house. There were also some issues in relation to other comments she'd made, including to the media, on Facebook. So ultimately, I think it was a choice that they had to make, and they made the right one. But criminal trials are living things, and you can never predict the outcome.
Charlie, we're seeing some of the evidence come through CCTV. We're also seeing that the actual beef Wellington itself was examined. We now know that. We can see some of that evidence coming through. How important was it for detectives, I guess, to have their ducks in a row?
Well, it's extremely important because they only get one bite at the cherry. And they had to go with their best case possible, and this really involved a lot of medical evidence, toxicology evidence, so forth and so on in relation to and witnesses also. So you go where the evidence takes you, and we've got electronic evidence. We saw them bring in the dog from the Federal Police to look for electronic devices. We've got the phones, etc., etc. So ultimately, very, very significant because the police know the high burden to prove a case beyond reasonable doubt. So, and this was one of the massive cases, and ultimately they're responsible to the family and to the community of Victoria to give them answers and bring someone to justice.
Ruth, as a defence lawyer, when did you think she's gone for? Was it the different colour plates? Was it the lying? Because there are a lot of lies, you know, brought up in the court. When did you think, oh, she's gone here?
Well, look, I don't think I ever really formed that view until the verdict, but I thought that there were real issues with the lies, particularly around the food dehydrator. I think that there were lots of different conflicting versions, but I agree with Charlie, which was that, you know, after a few days, I thought that there was a real prospect of a hung jury because the other issue that the prosecution have was motive. And there wasn't really a powerful motive in this case. So it was a very unusual case in the sense that there were lots of conflicting accounts, there were lies told by the accused, and then there was a lack of motive. So this really could have gone either way, but ultimately the jury was satisfied beyond reasonable doubt on the evidence collected that she was guilty of murder on 3 counts and attempted murder on another. And so we really haven't seen a case like this before.
Charlie, there's still a chance of an appeal for her legal team. Also to the sentencing, we don't know when that's going to come down and what sort of severity that sentencing is going to be. But life behind bars for Erin Patterson. You've worked on high-profile cases before. We're hearing that she's not very well liked at the moment, having been held for the last 20 months behind bars. I mean, what is life like for Erin Patterson right now?
Look, it'll be quite difficult, the fact of being segregated, and there is that untold code in the prison system about attacking or causing harm to children and the elderly. So ultimately she's not going to do her time easy, and I think given the fact that one murder count carries life imprisonment, I would expect the 3 life imprisonments, possibly with a very high parole date. She'll get parole. I'll be very surprised whether she gets life with no parole, but I think parole will be set because the judge will have to take into account her whole circumstances when she gives their plea material and how she'll be undergoing sentence. It'll be a difficult time for her. So that's a long time that she'll be suffering in jail. So ultimately, we'll be interested to see what the justice comes back with.
Ruth, is it right that she only has about a month to appeal, and do you think she will?
Look, technically the rule is that you've got 28 days to appeal your conviction, but realistically the court will grant leave to appeal out of time for such big cases where there is so much evidence and transcript. But ultimately I think that if she has the option to appeal, she will, because Charlie's right, she is looking at a very significant sentence. And we haven't seen a case like this where there have been 3 people killed at the same time in circumstances such as these, where they haven't gotten life. The issue will be whether she gets a parole period or a non-parole period. So, look, I think that there's a way to go with this one. She can definitely appeal out of time, but the focus for her lawyers will be trying to get her the least possible sentence.
There you go. Ruth, Charlie, appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you.